Coach, you kind of mentioned it when you first got here about the number of tight ends you had. Just kind of the spring you thought Spivey had and the depth you had at that position.
Yeah, I mean, with Farad running with the ones, and Dante's a guy that's played some ball and done some nice things in games, and Spivey had a couple nice catches today, and then the guy that's as talented as any of them, had 2 hits and a couple runs scored yesterday. So we mentioned our O-line is being real deep, and our linebacking core is being deep and talented, but I think the tight end position is right there with that.
Team captains, so they're going to be announced after the game. Can you tell us who they are and kind of what your thoughts are on those guys?
Yeah, our thought process for captains is that we named 2 after spring ball, so we can head into summer where it's more player-driven and player-oriented. And saw something online the other day. A coach said, I'm not sure it was from Nebraska maybe, that bad teams have no leadership, good teams are led by coaches, and great teams are led by players. So we had the vote, and it was an overwhelming majority for both of these guys. It was Darrell Williams for the offense, Errol Thompson for the defense. So I thought the team did a good job talking about what the parameters were, how you identify leadership and what they need to do for the team. Had those guys talk to the group afterwards, and I think that the team did an excellent job in their selection process, and I think they picked the right 2 guys.
Coach, Casey started off a little slow.
He did.
It was like 2 for 10, but then ended up like 7 of his last 8 passes.
Yeah.
How much for him is just building consistency kind of the next step for him?
Yeah, and that's part of it. And I think we talked to you guys earlier in the week about the spring game being not about plays but about players, and it's kind of vanilled up. And there's always 3 components that go into that stat line: the protection, the route, the catch, and the throw. And I think some of them were probably catchable, and maybe we pull those things in. And like anything, it's how you respond to adversity and how you respond to prosperity. And talk about some things in the locker room and came out and finished stronger in the second half. But certainly, as we move forward, the things we talked about addressing last year, kind of from a historical context of what we need to do, we need to be more efficient, more explosive in the pass game. I think we saw the explosiveness part of it, but we need to still complete a higher percentage of passes.
Defensive tackle was an important position for y'all this spring, given everything you lost there, and then the red shirt that y'all did last year. Where do you feel like y'all are at that position coming out of spring?
I think we're young, but I think we're talented, and then certainly losing Kendall early in the spring didn't help matters. But Lee and Fabian have been running with the ones, and you got Crumley Robinson and Cam Young and some of those other guys, and then they've got some help on the way with some really talented incoming players. But as we discussed, you lose your 2 starters and then the 3 primary backups behind them. That's a lot of depth. So I think the pieces are in place, but we need to get them a bunch of reps in fall camp and get them ready for SEC play.
You mentioned, I think, last week about Garrett kind of swimming a little bit out there and stuff, but now the spring is concluded. Just how pleased are you with how he developed this spring and just where he's at right now?
Yeah, he and Jalen, and I think you kind of saw a glimpse of what occurred in the spring. They're incredibly talented. I think the speed of the game is kind of something that they need to get used to. The understanding of the scheme, but he threw that corner ball and it backed up, against the one defense, and threw the hook route in there to Cam Gardner, who had a couple nice plays. But the great thing about those 2 guys is the talent is there. It's the increased understanding of what it takes to succeed at this level from a mental preparation standpoint. But all the 7-on-7 reps they're going to do on their own in the summer and then everything in fall camp. I think the great news is they can do it, so we just got to get ready. Todd?
Austin Williams was a guy.
How's he doing? Is he still up?
He's one off.
One off? Okay.
Austin Williams was a guy you guys talked about a lot heading into last season. Probably didn't have the overall season that he wanted, but he got a couple big red zone touchdowns today. How effective do you think he can continue to be in the red zone and overall as a receiver?
Yeah, he and Dedrick in the slot position. And, we have Kazai and Javonte Payton coming in to kind of compete there. But I think they bring kind of 2 different skill sets. Dedrick's more of a obviously smaller body, shiftier, quicker change of direction. And I think that helps Austin is he's not as fast, he's not as explosive. His change of direction isn't as good. But he's got a lot of savviness and a lot of understanding of how to run routes and kind of depths and how to set people up. So the challenge for him now is to increase his speed in order to create separation. When he's got time and he's got space and there's kind of air in the zone, that's one of the games you saw that he's been the most effective, but we got to work on him, being able to run away from man coverage, and I think that's where he'll find the most improvement.
Could you talk about the other day about the sort of the secondary and linebackers kind of being the older guys in the defense, and obviously they got a couple takeaways today. It's a little cliche, but I mean, how encouraging is that to see them getting on balls and getting in front of you guys?
Yeah, for all the great things we did last year defensively, led the SEC in scoring defense in the most statistical categories. The one that Coach Shubin, we've talked about as a staff is increasing the number of turnovers that we produce, and got 2 of those today. And that linebacking core, I'd be hard pressed to find a group that's any deeper in the SEC or in the country with Errol, Willie, Leo, Tim Washington, and if you count the star position with Brian Cole and Shamar Kilby-Lane's really coming on, and that's the thing that's encouraging to me with the amount of junior college players that we take, and some of them were pressed into duty immediately when you maybe like to use a red shirt on them, but the year 2 is when you see a lot of maturation and improvement, and I think Shamar's really, towards the tail end of the spring, really stepped up and played some pretty good football. He and Brule, Watson, Jet Johnson will really be there.